What if I told you that half an acre, the size of a large backyard, could feed a family of four almost completely free for the entire year? Not someday, not with a huge investment, right now with the right layout. Most people look at a small piece of land and see limitations. I want to show you why that half acre might be the most powerful piece of property you've ever owned, if you stop treating it like a garden and start treating it like a system. Stay with me, because by the end of this video, you're going to see your land completely differently, and I'm going to walk you through exactly how this layout works, zone by zone, season by season. Let me start with a question. How much did you spend on groceries last month? For most families in the U.S., the answer is somewhere between $600 and $1,000 every single month. That's up to $12,000 a year gone to a grocery store for food that traveled an average of 1,500 miles to reach your plate, picked before it was ripe, sprayed with things you can't pronounce, and stored in a warehouse for weeks before you ever touched it. And here's what really stings. You might have land sitting right outside your door. Maybe it's overgrown, maybe it's just grass you mow every week like clockwork. Maybe you've tried a little garden bed in the corner and got a few tomatoes, but that land is essentially doing nothing for you. Nothing. And every year that goes by, that's another $12,000 you handed over when you didn't have to. I hear from people all the time who say they want to grow their own food but don't know where to start. They plant a few things, nothing connects, the weeds take over by August, and they give up. And honestly, that's not a willpower problem, that's a design problem. They were trying to grow food without a system, and without a system, even the best intentions fall apart. Here's the thing that nobody in the gardening world really talks about. It's not about what you grow, it's about how everything is arranged. The layout, the actual physical design of your land, is the difference between a homestead that runs itself and one that runs you into the ground. There's a design framework that's been used quietly by homesteaders, permaculture designers, and self-sufficient farmers for decades. It's not complicated, but it works almost like a living machine. Each part feeds into the next. Waste from one area becomes food for another. The land starts doing most of the work. I'm going to walk you through the exact half-acre layout that makes this possible. 7 specific zones. Each one has a role. Together, they create a system that produces food in spring, summer, fall, and yes, even winter. But first, let me tell you where most people go wrong, because if you skip this part, none of the rest matters. The biggest mistake I see, and I made this myself when I first started, is treating a homestead like a bigger version of a hobby garden. You just plant more stuff in more beds scattered around the yard, and for the first few weeks it looks great. Then reality hits. You're watering 6 different areas, you're weeding constantly, nothing is close together in a way that makes sense. Your chickens are nowhere near the beds they should be fertilizing. Your fruit trees are in full shade, and by midsummer you're exhausted, overwhelmed, and you've got way more zucchini than anyone on earth needs. The system I'm about to show you fixes all of that. It's built around a concept called zone planning, organizing your land by how often you interact with each area. The things you use every day go closest to your house. The things that mostly take care of themselves go furthest away. Simple in theory, transformative in practice. Let's go zone by zone. Zone 1 is your daily kitchen garden, and it lives right outside your back door. We're talking a 10 by 20 foot raised bed situation, maybe 2 or 3 beds. This is where you grow the things you grab every single day. Herbs, salad greens, radishes, green onions, cherry tomatoes, the stuff that goes straight from bed to plate in under 5 minutes. Why does this matter so much? Because convenience drives behavior. If your herbs are a 3-minute walk away, you won't go get them on a busy Tuesday night. But if they're literally outside your kitchen door, you'll use them constantly. And when you use them constantly, you keep harvesting. And when you keep harvesting, the plants keep producing. It's a cycle that feeds itself. In Zone 1, you also want a cold frame or a small hoop tunnel. This is how you extend your season. In most climates, a simple cold frame gets you fresh greens from October all the way through March. That's your winter food right there, without a greenhouse, without electricity, without anything fancy. The investment for Zone 1? maybe $200 in lumber and soil amendments if you're starting from scratch. The return? Easily $1,500 worth of fresh herbs and greens annually that you never have to buy again. Zone 2 is your main vegetable production area. This is where the real calorie crops live. Tomatoes, peppers, squash, beans, corn, potatoes, sweet potatoes, cucumbers. This zone sits just a bit further from the house, maybe 30 to 50 feet out, and covers roughly a quarter of your half acre. Here's where most people get it wrong in this zone. They plant in rows, long, straight, single crop rows. And rows are actually one of the least efficient ways to grow food on a small piece of land. Instead, think in guilds. Plant groups of vegetables that help each other. The classic three sisters, corn, beans, and squash, is the most well-known example. The corn grows tall and gives the beans something to climb. The beans fix nitrogen into the soil and feed the corn. The squash spreads wide along the ground, shading out weeds and keeping moisture in. 3 crops, 1 bed, and they're essentially taking care of each other. This is the kind of thinking that makes a small space wildly productive. You're not just growing food, you're growing relationships between plants, and those relationships reduce your workload dramatically. In Zone 2, you should also plan for succession planting. That means every 3 weeks you're starting a new round of fast-growing crops: lettuce, spinach, beets, carrots. You're never waiting for one big harvest. You're harvesting something small every week. That consistency is what keeps your grocery bill down month after month. Zone 3 is your perennial food forest, and this is the part of the system most people completely overlook. This is also, and I want you to hear this clearly, the most important zone on your entire property for long-term food independence. Perennial plants are plants you put in once and they feed you for years, sometimes decades. Fruit trees, berry bushes, asparagus, rhubarb, Jerusalem artichokes, horseradish, comfrey. These are not high-maintenance crops. Once established, they mostly take care of themselves. On a half acre, you have room for 6 to 8 dwarf or semi-dwarf fruit trees: apple, pear, plum, cherry. Plant them in a loose cluster on the south-facing side of your property so they get maximum sun. Under and around them, tuck in currant bushes, gooseberries, and strawberries at the lower level. This is the layered food forest concept: tall trees, mid-level shrubs, and ground-level plants all sharing the same space. But this is the part nobody tells you. It takes 2 to 3 years for this zone to really start producing, and that's why most people either skip it or give up on it. They want results now, but the homesteaders who plant a food forest in year 1 are the ones eating free fruit in year 4, while everyone else is still paying $3 for a pound of apples at the store. Plant it now. Be patient. It will pay you back for the rest of your life.
Zone 4 is your small livestock area. And yes, even on half an acre, you can absolutely integrate animals into your system. We're not talking about a cow, we're talking about chickens, maybe ducks, maybe a small trio of meat rabbits. Here's what animals do for your homestead system that nothing else can. They convert scraps and forage into fertility. A small flock of 6 laying hens will eat your kitchen scraps, scratch up your garden beds in the off-season, eat pest insects, and produce eggs. And at the same time, they are literally manufacturing the best garden fertilizer on Earth, every day, for free. The key is integration. Your chicken coop goes on the edge of Zone 3, the food forest. You rotate the birds through the orchard in late summer and fall. They eat the fallen fruit before it breeds pests. They scratch through the leaf litter and eat grubs. They deposit manure right where your trees need it. And then you move them to a winter garden bed to till it and fertilize it for spring planting. This is what a system looks like. Nothing is wasted. Everything has a function. The chickens are not just chickens. They're your pest control, your tilling crew, and your fertilizer factory. 6 laying hens cost roughly $300 to set up, including a basic coop. They'll produce around 2,000 eggs a year. At current store prices, that's about $500 worth of eggs from a $300 setup. In the second year, that's all pure savings. Zone 5 is your composting and water management zone. I know that doesn't sound exciting, but this zone is the engine that makes everything else possible, and ignoring it is the single biggest reason homesteads stop producing after a couple of years. Every half-acre homestead needs at least 3 compost bins running in rotation, one that's actively filling, one that's decomposing, and one that's finished and ready to use. That finished compost goes back into zones 1 and 2 every season, replacing what the plants took out. Without this loop, your soil gets depleted and your yields drop every year. Your water management in this zone is equally important. On half an acre, you want to capture and hold as much rainwater as possible. A single 1,500-gallon rainwater tank connected to your roof downspouts can collect enough water during a rainy season to irrigate your Zone 1 and 2 beds through much of the dry season. In many states, this is completely legal and strongly encouraged. You also want to think about swales, shallow trenches on contour that slow water down and let it sink into the ground rather than run off. One afternoon with a shovel in the right place can change how your entire property holds moisture. It sounds small. The impact is enormous. Zone 6 is your seed saving and food preservation station. This is where your homestead becomes truly self-sustaining rather than just productive. Because here's a truth that most beginner homesteaders don't realize until year 2 or 3. Seeds are expensive, and if you're buying new seeds every single year, you're feeding a dependency that you don't need. When you start saving seeds from your best performing plants, your most productive tomato, your most flavorful bean, your most cold hardy lettuce, you're doing something remarkable. You're developing your own locally adapted varieties. Every year, those plants get a little better suited to your specific soil, your specific climate, your specific conditions. After 5 or 6 years of seed saving, you have varieties that no catalog sells because they were bred by your land for your land. Set aside a small corner of Zone 2 for your seed-saving plants. Let a few of your best vegetables go to seed intentionally. Dry them, label them, store them in a cool, dry place. Your seed costs drop to almost nothing, and your harvests quietly improve every single year. Pair this with your food preservation setup, a pressure canner, a dehydrator, a root cellar, or even a simple cool basement corner, and you have a complete loop. You're growing food, preserving it, and saving the seeds to grow it again. The grocery store starts to feel completely optional. Zone 7 is the wild and forage zone. And this one surprises people. On half an acre, you might think every square foot needs to be managed and planted. It doesn't, and it shouldn't be. Leave the edges of your property a little wild. Plant native wildflowers along the fence line. Let a patch of clover grow in the corner. Let some goldenrod come in. This is not laziness, this is strategy. Those wild zones are habitat for beneficial insects, pollinators, pest predators, ground beetles that eat slug eggs, parasitic wasps that control caterpillar populations. A half acre that has a wild edge produces significantly more from its cultivated zones because the ecology around it is functioning. Studies from agroecology research have consistently shown that farms with habitat diversity outproduce monoculture plots even when the cultivated area is smaller. On top of that, wild zones often produce their own food. Elderberries, wild blackberries, wood sorrel, chickweed, lamb's quarters, these are all edible plants that will volunteer on the edges of your property if you let them. They require 0 effort and 0 input. They just grow. And they are genuinely nutritious food that costs you absolutely nothing. Now, let me show you what all of this looks like together. Because when these 7 zones work as a single integrated system, something remarkable happens. In early spring, your Zone 1 cold frame is already producing greens. Your perennial zone is budding. Your chickens are on the winter garden beds tilling and fertilizing. By late spring, your main vegetable beds are in full swing. Your fruit trees are flowering and getting pollinated by the insects from your wild zone. Your compost is hot and ready to feed your beds. Summer, everything is producing at full capacity. You're harvesting daily from Zone 1 and 2. You're preserving the surplus. Your chickens are on rotation through the food forest, cleaning up pests. Fall, your root crops come in. Your fruit trees are loaded, your cold frame goes back up for winter greens, you're putting the garden beds to rest with a layer of compost from Zone 5. Winter, you're eating from your pantry, your root cellar, your cold frame, you're reviewing your seed stock, you're planning next year, and your land is quietly resting and rebuilding. That's a complete cycle. That's a living system, and it runs on half an acre. The transformation isn't just about money, though the money is real. A well-designed half-acre homestead can realistically produce between $6,000 and $10,000 worth of food value annually once it's fully established. That's based on retail prices for the equivalent organic produce, eggs, herbs, and preserved foods. Many homesteaders in the community report that within 3 years, their grocery bills have dropped by 60 to 80%. But the real transformation is something harder to put a dollar sign on. It's the feeling of walking outside in the morning and seeing food everywhere you look. It's feeding your kids a dinner where every single ingredient came from your land. It's knowing that if the supply chain had a bad week, where the prices spiked again, or the store shelves looked thin, it doesn't touch you. Not really. Not anymore. That is a kind of freedom that most people in the modern world have never felt, and it's available to anyone with half an acre and a plan. I want to be honest with you about something before I wrap up. This system doesn't come together overnight. Year 1, you're mostly setting things up, building your zones, planting your perennials, getting your composting running, maybe adding chickens. Year 2, you start to really feel the momentum. Year 3, it starts to feel like the land is doing most of the work for you. The people who give up in year 1 always do so for the same reason. They expected a garden and got a project. But the people who push through into year 2, they never look back, because once the system is running, it runs, and it keeps running. Here's where I want to leave you. You don't need to build all 7 zones at once. You don't need to do everything perfectly. You just need to start with one zone. Zone 1, the kitchen garden right outside your back door, and let that momentum carry you to the next. Take one action this week. Go outside. Look at your land with new eyes. Stop seeing grass and weeds and wasted space. Start seeing zones. Start seeing a system. Start seeing food. If you're ready to dig deeper into any of these zones, the food forest layout, the chicken integration, the seed saving process, let me know which one you want me to cover first. I'm building out this whole series, and your comments are literally shaping what I make next. And if this video helped you see your land differently, share it with someone who has land they're not using. Because somewhere out there, someone is sitting on half an acre of potential, paying $1,000 a month at the grocery store, and they just haven't seen it yet. Until next time, go build something real.